July 12, 1943. The battlefield near Prokhorovka was about to become one of the most intense armored clashes of World War II. Hundreds of Soviet and German tanks were moving toward each other. The Germans had some of the most powerful tanks of the war, but the Soviets had a plan. Instead of allowing German tanks to destroy them from long range, Soviet armored units would close the distance and force the Germans into a chaotic, close-range battle. What happened next would become legendary. By 1943, Nazi Germany was losing its momentum on the Eastern Front. After the German disaster at Stalingrad, the Red Army was becoming stronger. Germany needed a major victory, so Hitler approved Operation Citadel, a massive offensive against Soviet forces around Kursk. The German plan was to attack from both north and south, surround the Soviet forces, and destroy them. But there was one major problem. The Soviets knew the attack was coming. They prepared defensive positions across the region, including trenches, minefields, artillery, anti-tank weapons, and reserve forces. And near Prokhorovka, Soviet tanks were waiting. On July 12th, Soviet armored forces launched a major attack near Prokhorovka. T-34 tanks moved toward German armored formations. The Soviets understood that German tanks could be extremely dangerous at long range. The German Tiger tank, for example, carried a powerful 88mm gun capable of destroying enemy armor from considerable distances, so the Soviets attempted to close the gap. As the tanks moved closer, the battlefield became a nightmare. Dust and smoke filled the air. Artillery explosions shook the ground. Tanks maneuvered through the confusion, while crews struggled to identify friend from enemy. At close range, Soviet tanks could attack German armor more aggressively. But this strategy came at a terrible price. The Soviets suffered heavy tank losses. The battle was not the simple Soviet victory that later propaganda sometimes suggested. German forces were not completely destroyed. Instead, both sides suffered serious losses during the fighting. But something more important was happening. The German offensive was losing momentum. Prokhorovka was only one part of the much larger Battle of Kursk. And although the Soviet attack suffered enormous losses, Germany failed to achieve its main objective. The Soviet defensive system had absorbed the German offensive. Then the Red Army began counterattacking. The Germans were increasingly pushed onto the defensive. After Kursk, Germany would struggle to regain the strategic initiative on the Eastern Front. The Red Army would continue advancing westward, eventually pushing German forces back toward Berlin. For decades, Prokhorovka was remembered as a huge Soviet tank victory, a moment when massive numbers of Soviet tanks supposedly destroyed the German armored force. But history is more complicated. The Soviets suffered devastating losses, and the Germans were not wiped out. Yet, the bigger picture was clear. Operation Citadel had failed. Kursk became one of the major turning points of World War II, and Prokhorovka became a symbol of the brutal armored warfare that defined the Eastern Front. One battlefield, hundreds of tanks, thousands of men, and a battle that helped change the direction of the war. This was Prokhorovka. Subscribe to War Revelation for more stories from the battles that changed history.